All right, so are you ready to dive into one of the wildest stories in history? I mean, it's incredible and a little bit crazy.
It's definitely got it all.
Yeah, the Münster Rebellion.
That's right.
It all happened way back in the 16th century in Europe, right in the middle of the Protestant Reformation.
A real powder keg.
Yeah, exactly. When, like, religious tensions were just like...
At a boiling point.
Yeah, totally boiling point.
Things are about to explode.
I'm sure most people listening have heard of Martin Luther, and his 95 Theses.
Oh, of course. That was really just the spark, though.
Yeah.
Think of it like this Luther's challenge to the Catholic Church. It just opened the floodgates. I mean, all of a sudden you had all these new Protestant groups popping up everywhere.
Like mushrooms.
Exactly. Each one with their own take on the Bible and, how society should be run.
Yeah, like their own version.
Yeah.
And this is where the story really kicks off, right? With Anabaptists.
Right. On the money.
Okay, so remind me about them. Like, what made them so different?
They were a fascinating bunch. I mean, they believed in adult baptism, for one thing.
Okay.
They also believed in sharing property, which was
super radical.
Absolutely radical for the time. It was like, whoa, hold on. You're challenging everything we know.
Yeah, so they were really shaking things up. But then within the Anabaptists, things got even crazier.
Oh, yeah, way crazier.
With the Münster Rebellion.
With the Anabaptists, it's important to remember, they weren't just seen as heretics by the Catholics, right?
Right.
They were a problem for everyone. They were a thorn in the side of the newly established Protestant authorities, too.
Ah, so they were like...
Equal opportunity offenders.
Yeah, double trouble.
Yeah. Their idea of totally separating church and state was a direct threat to anyone in power.
Oh, so they were a threat to everyone.
Everyone.
I can see why things were about to get messy.
Buckle up.
Okay, so let's talk about this guy, Melchior Hoffman. I mean, how did this Münster Rebellion actually start?
Oh, Hoffman. He was a firebrand. A fiery preacher.
Like a real in-your-face kind of guy.
Absolutely. He actually started as a Lutheran, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
But eventually he became like a poster child for the Anabaptist movement.
Okay, so he switched sides.
You could say that there's this amazing story about him smashing a stained glass window in a cathedral.
Really?
Oh, yeah. He just went berserk.
Yeah.
Declared he was done with the Catholic Church.
What a way to make a statement.
No kidding. Talk about dramatic.
So he was definitely not afraid to make a scene, but wasn't he also the one who said that Strasbourg was the new Jerusalem? Like the place where Christ would return?
That's the one that really got people talking.
I bet.
Oh, yeah. Hoffman's apocalyptic preaching and this huge following he had. I mean, it freaked out both the Catholics and the Protestants.
Yeah, I can imagine they probably didn't know what to do with him.
They threw him in prison for heresy.
Makes sense.
But his ideas, those kept spreading like wildfire.
So even in prison, he was still a threat.
A major threat. And this is where Jan Matthys comes in.
Okay, so Matthys is like Hoffman's successor.
Precisely. He was the guy who took this whole radical Anabaptist thing and pointed it right at Münster.
Okay, so how did he end up in charge?
Well, Matthys, he was a charismatic guy, a real leader.
Okay.
He picks up where Hoffman left off, and he decides that Münster, with its, large Anabaptist population, that was the true New Jerusalem.
So he just like shifted the focus.
Exactly. And he wasn't interested in peaceful reforms anymore. It was time for action.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. He started preaching about a coming battle between the righteous and the wicked. Like, get ready to fight.
Okay, things are getting serious now.
Oh, yeah.
So how did Matthys and his crew actually take over Münster? Did the city just, like, surrender?
Not quite. It's interesting, actually. At first, the city's mayor, this guy named Bernard Knipperdoling, he welcomed the Anabaptists.
Really?
Yeah, he was a Protestant himself,
Okay.
And he probably saw them as allies against the Catholic bishop, who still had a lot of power in the area.
Oh, so he was playing politics.
Definitely trying to use them to his advantage.
But it sounds like Matthys had a different plan.
Totally. Matthys wasn't into compromise or peaceful coexistence or any of that.
Yeah, once those Anabaptists were inside Münster.
Game over.
Ah.
They took control, immediately instituted mandatory rebaptism, anyone who refused to join them.
What happened?
Out they went, expelled, kicked out of the city.
Wow, so they weren't messing around.
Not at all. They were preparing for the apocalypse.
Yeah, like a full-on siege mentality.
Exact.
I bet that mayor was regretting his decision by then.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Okay, so is this where the siege of Münster begins?
You got it. The Catholic bishop, Franz von Waldeck.
Okay.
He wasn't going to let Münster just slip away. He gathered his army and surrounded the city, cut off their supplies.
So they were trapped.
Completely. Trapped inside with a charismatic leader, apocalyptic visions, and a whole lot of religious fervor.
Like a pressure cooker?
About to explode.
This is intense.
Okay.
Okay, what happens next?
Well, this is where Matthys makes a big mistake. Convinced that God was on his side, he leads a small group of horsemen out of the city to face the bishop's army head on.
Wait, he thought a handful of horsemen could take on a whole army.
Yeah, he really believed it.
Oh, that sounds like a disaster waiting to happen.
It was. He was killed in the attack, his head put on display outside the city walls.
Oh my God.
As a warning to the rebels inside.
That's brutal.
It was a major blow to the Anabaptists.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But it wasn't the end of the rebellion. Not even close.
Really?
Oh no, things were just getting started.
So even without their leader, they kept fighting.
Oh yeah, they were determined.
I am on the edge of my seat here. So who takes charge after Matthys? And how does this story get even wilder?
Well, you'd think losing their leader would have just crushed them, right?
Yeah, you'd think they'd give up.
But no way. These Anabaptists in Münster, they were not giving up. They were digging in.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Things were actually about to get a lot weirder.
Weirder? How is that even possible?
Well, let me tell you about Jan van Leiden. Jan van Leiden. Oh, yeah, I've heard of this guy. He's, well, let's just say he's got a bit of a reputation.
That's putting it mildly.
So what kind of leader was he? Fill me in.
Okay, so imagine this. You're in Münster, right?
Yeah.
And things are just falling apart.
Yeah, total chaos.
Exactly. Everyone's terrified. Nobody knows what's going to happen next. And then this guy steps in, Jan van Leiden.
Okay.
And he's not just promising salvation. He's promising power. Like real earthly power.
Okay, so he's playing on their fears.
Oh, absolutely. He knew exactly what they needed. He was charismatic. He was a powerful speaker.
And I bet people were just desperate for something to believe.
Exactly. And that's how he got them to accept him. Not just as a religious leader.
But as king.
He declared himself king.
King of Münster, the king of the New Jerusalem.
Wow. Okay, so Matthys dies. And it just opens the door for someone even more extreme to take over.
Yeah. Pretty much, Van Leiden, he took this whole New Jerusalem idea and he just ran with it. I mean, he went all out. Strict religious laws, communal living.
Okay, that's getting pretty intense. But wait, there's more. He also introduced polygamy.
Polygamy. Like multiple wives?
Multiple wives. He himself took 16 wives.
16?
What? 16 wives. Talk about an ego.
Yeah, that's a little much. I mean, I get that people were looking for a strong leader, but polygamy, was that really an Anabaptist belief, or was Van Leiden just making stuff up as he went along?
Well, it's hard to say for sure. He justified it using the Bible, of course, but you can't deny that it also served his own interests.
Yeah, 16 wives, that's a lot of power.
It was a way to solidify his control, you know, position himself as this kind of ultimate patriarch, the king with absolute authority.
So he was basically creating his own little kingdom inside Münster.
Exactly. And anyone who disagreed with him, let's just say they didn't last very long.
Oh, so there was resistance.
Of course there was. But Van Leiden, he wasn't exactly known for his tolerance.
Right.
Dissent was crushed brutally. Public executions, they became routine.
Oh, God.
And the city, which was already suffering under the siege, I mean, it just descended into this nightmare of fear and paranoia.
So it was like a double siege.
Yeah, from the outside and from the inside.
And Van Leiden, he was so focused on controlling the people inside the city.
Yeah, she was obsessed with it.
That he forgot about the real threat.
You mean the bishop's army?
Yeah, exactly. They were still out there waiting for their chance.
Well, remember that deserter we talked about?
Oh, yeah, the one who betrayed the city.
The one who showed the bishop's army how to get in.
Right. That was a turning point, wasn't it?
A huge turning point. So it's June 1535, middle of the night, pitch black.
Okay.
The bishop's forces, they're creeping up to the city walls, guided by the deserter.
And nobody suspects a thing.
Nope. They find the secret entrance, overpower the guards, open the gates.
And that's it. After more than a year of holding out, Münster falls in one night.
Just like that. All thanks to a hidden entrance and a well-timed betrayal.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
What happened to the Anabaptists inside? What about Van Leiden and his 16 wives?
Well, the fall of Münster was swift, and it was brutal. The bishop's army, they were furious.
Yeah, I bet after a year of waiting outside.
They stormed the city, and they didn't hold back.
I can only imagine the chaos.
It was a bloodbath. Pretty much every man in the city was killed.
Oh, my God.
The leaders of the rebellion, including Van Leiden,
yeah,
they were captured and executed.
So the Münster Rebellion, it ends not with a bang, but with a whisper.
And a lot of bloodshed.
Yeah, a very bloody whisper.
Yeah.
It's a crazy story. It really is. Fascinating and tragic all at the same time.
Yeah.
So, what happened after Münster fell? Did the Anabaptist movement just disappear?
Yeah. It really is wild, isn't it?
It's like this one event.
Mm-hmm.
The Münster Rebellion just has it all.
It really does.
You've got, the Protestant Reformation changing everything.
Right.
Then you've got this charismatic leader with these radical ideas.
And the promise of utopia.
Yeah, and then it all goes horribly wrong.
It's a classic story in a way, but it really makes you think about, the line between faith and fanaticism.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the Anabaptists started out with these ideals of peace and equality.
Right.
But then in Münster, things just got so twisted.
They did.
It's almost like the siege itself, made things worse. Like you created this environment where things could spiral out of control.
Absolutely. Being trapped inside the city like that, facing starvation, the constant threat. I mean,
it would make anyone desperate.
It would. And desperate people are more willing to believe in anything. Even a guy like Van Leiden with his, crazy promises.
Yeah, I mean, he was really good at exploiting their fear, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah. He was a master manipulator. He knew how to play the crowd.
So what about the aftermath? I mean, the Münster Rebellion was a huge deal.
Oh, yeah. It sent shockwaves through Europe.
So what happened? What was the impact?
Well, for the Anabaptists, it was a real wake-up call.
Like a turning point.
Exactly. A lot of them were horrified by the violence and, Van Leiden's excesses.
Right. They didn't sign up for that.
No, they didn't. They went back to their pacifist roots. They focused on building communities based on shared faith and helping each other out.
So in a way, it's like the tragedy of Münster led to a more peaceful form of Anabaptism.
Yeah, you could say that. It's like even from the darkest moments,
something good can emerge.
Exactly. Sometimes change happens not through revolution,
but through just quiet persistence.
Right. Living your values day after day.
But the Münster Rebellion, it also raises these bigger questions about, human nature.
It does.
Like, how could people get swept up in something so extreme?
Right. It's like there's this part of us that's drawn to radical ideas.
Especially in times of crisis.
Exactly. When we're scared, when we're uncertain, we're looking for answers. And sometimes those answers come from the wrong places.
It makes you wonder if something like this could happen again, even today.
Oh, I think it could definitely happen again. I mean, we're not so different from those people in Münster. We still have charismatic leaders. We still have extreme ideologies. And we're still vulnerable to fear and manipulation.
So what have we learned from all of this? What's the takeaway?
Well, I think the Münster Rebellion is a cautionary tale. It's a story about the dangers of unchecked power.
And the allure of utopian promises.
Right, and how easily fear and desperation can be manipulated. But it's also a story about resilience.
Yeah, and the power of faith.
And the possibility of finding hope even in the darkest of times.
That's a great way to put it. It's been a fascinating journey, hasn't it? I mean, who knew a story from so long ago could still be so relevant today?
It's a testament to the power of history.
It really is. So thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Münster Rebellion.
It's been my pleasure.
We hope you've enjoyed it, and we hope it's given you plenty to think about.